So, to begin with, in this video, I'm going to present a list of some of the most significant things that human culture worldwide really does not wish for any of us to be talking about. Because these things are true. Because they are true and specifically contradict what human culture says is true. I'll try to rattle through this list in as concise a way as possible. I talk about each of them in more detail in many of my other videos, but here I'd like to present a broad overview of them to show how one informs the other. I'll begin with the big three: mathematics, physics, and religion. But this will lead on to subjects that directly shape daily life for us all. Okay, so, mathematics. Mathematics are meant to model physical reality for us accurately and reliably, so that we may accurately and reliably predict those aspects of physical reality that can be described and measured in terms of quantity. Here's the thing about mathematics. The reason they can be used as effectively as we use them is because there are truths about reality that remain reliably true. Truths that remain reliably true, regardless of who, what, or where you are objective. Our top mathematicians say that numbers, mathematical rules, are subjective. Subject to the presence and behavior of physical phenomena. This is incorrect, and it can be understood to be incorrect for very simple reasons. The rules of correct mathematics do not change, while physical phenomena are always in a state of relative change. Physical phenomena change, and they change specifically in order to remain in agreement with those mathematical truths that do not change, those truths that remain true in all places at all times. This clearly, simply, and absolutely means that the physical is subject to mathematical truth and not the other way around. Why should it be, do you think, that the very first video of mine that got me flagged for online suppression was one in which I explain this? Most people in this world are not even aware that our top mathematicians claim that numbers are subjective. This is a curious thing, don't you think? So this is the first item on our list of what we can talk about versus what is true. Human culture says that mathematics are subjective. I say they are objective. And I am suppressed online for saying it. What next? Staying with mathematics a little longer. It is an accepted fact that we have not yet achieved a perfect mathematical model at the foundational level. We do not actually have a foundation for our mathematics. A good example that illustrates this is that we are unable to calculate the square roots of negative numbers. This is a problem that has puzzled mathematicians for a long time. A problem that led to us coming to rely on a hack, a workaround for not knowing the answer to this problem. And this hack is commonly known as imaginary numbers. There is actually a very simple reason that we cannot calculate the square roots of negative numbers. And the reason is that the concept of negative numbers is a broken concept. According to our dictionaries, negative numbers literally represent the measurement of quantities of less than nothing. In reality, in the physical reality that our mathematical models are intended to represent accurately and reliably, there is no such thing as less than nothing. No such thing as increasing quantities of less than nothing. In physical reality, the absolute, very smallest quantity one can have of any given measurable quality is 0. In actual reality, once you have 0 quantity of a thing, it is impossible to have any less of that thing. The concept of negative numbers originally only came into common use when it was used as a tool for calculating financial debt. A positive bank balance means you have money in your account. A bank balance of 0 means you have no money in your account. And a negative bank balance means you owe the bank money. Here's what it is important to acknowledge here. Owing the bank money does not mean that you have less than no money. What it means is that you have a measurable amount of debt. The quality of debt is the polar inversion of the quality of credit. But they are both positive qualities because they can both increase and decrease in measurable quantity. They are both positive qualities because they both do exist in reality, while less than 0 of anything does not exist anywhere in reality. So, the second item on our list of what we can talk about versus what is true, human culture says that negative numbers are correct mathematics that express the reality that it is possible to have increasing quantities of less than 0 of a thing. I say that the concept of less than zero quantity of a thing is a logical fallacy, but that measurable qualities do have their own polar inversions that are positive, measurable qualities in their own right. I am suppressed online for saying this. Okay, so let's move on to physics. So, as far as the discipline of physics is concerned, physical phenomena are everything. The only thing that is real. The only thing that matters. For this reason, the gold standard of physics research is empirical observation of the physical and even non-physical phenomena, such as the spatial dimensions and the passage of time, are attributed physical qualities by theoretical physicists. Our physicists can only think in physical terms, are only allowed to think in physical terms by their own gold standard. And so, our physicists believe in such things as the spatial dimensions becoming curved and the passage of time being more dense in some places and less dense in others. In the same way that our mathematicians are unable to calculate the square roots of negative numbers because negative quantities do not exist in reality, so too are our physicists unable to identify the cause of physical phenomena because it is an absolute logical necessity that physical phenomena have a non-physical cause, and our physicists are literally not permitted to believe in the non-physical. Physics says that only the physical is real. I say that the physical must have a non-physical cause. Physics says that the spatial dimensions are a physical object that can become curved. I say that you cannot have a curved object of any kind that is not entirely subject to there being three non-physical spatial dimensions within which you can have curved objects first. Physics says that the passage of time is a physical mechanism. I say that physical mechanisms cannot conceivably occur without the simple truth that one moment follows another. One moment follows another because one moment simply cannot not follow another. There are three spatial dimensions because it is utterly impossible for there not to be three spatial dimensions. And physical phenomena absolutely must have a non-physical cause. I am suppressed online for saying this? Okay, so next we have religion, or more specifically, God-believing. This one is a little tricky to summarize, just because God-believing comes in a wide range of flavors. But God is generally seen to be the source of all creation, eternal in nature, and ineffable to the human mind. There is infinite space for all infinite time, because it is existentially impossible for there not to be three spatial dimensions, and it is impossible for one moment to not follow another. They were not created because they have never not been happening. That which is eternal has no choice about being eternal. And the only thing that is eternal is truths that are existentially incapable of not being true. Does this result in consciousness and sensitivity? Yes, it does. Here is how it works. The only possible reason for existence is that there are truths that cannot not be true. The defining feature of truths that cannot not be true is that they remain true and in effect in all places at all times. This means that they must iterate relative to each other. In other words, they must be expressing the truth of themselves, because they cannot not do this. Truths that cannot stop themselves from being true cannot stop each other from being true, which means that they must take each other into account. And this is mechanistically synonymous with them being sensitive to each other, which is mechanistically synonymous with them being conscious of each other. Those who are religious are not permitted to know this, because it runs contrary to what their religion allows them to know. But it is both the only conceivable cause of existence and the only coherent understanding of what consciousness is. The foundational truths of reality are eternal through no fault of their own. They are sensitive. They are conscious. They cause all of infinite space, and they occupy all of infinite space. That which is conscious, that which is sensitive, is eternal truth in iteration. There is no room in all existence for anything else to be sensitive, to be conscious, because eternal truth in iteration takes up all of the room. Therefore, if you are conscious, if you are sensitive, then you are, through no fault of your own, eternal truth. Religion says that God is the source of all creation. I say that foundational truth is the source of all creation. Religion says that God is eternal in nature. I say that foundational truth is eternal in nature. Religion says that God is ineffable to the human mind. I say that we are both the cause and the result of creation. I am suppressed online for saying this. Okay, so the big three: maths, physics, and religion. These deal with the existential matters of what is true about reality. And what we believe is true about reality informs all aspects of our daily lives, from politics to education and so forth. Let's start with politics and then education and see where that leads us. So, politics. What is politics? Politics is the governance alternative to monarchy. Just as God-believing comes in many flavors of religion, politics comes in many flavors of democracy. So, what is democracy? Democracy is the agreements of the majority are imposed on all of us. A two-word phrase that sums this up is mob rules. Here is the dilemma at the heart of the matter of governance. Shall the many govern us, or shall the few govern us? Who is it exactly that we want to have telling us what we must do? The truthful answer to this question is that we do not wish to have anybody telling us what we must do. We just wish for some guidance sometimes. Guidance from those who have a good grasp of what is true about reality. And who can we go to in this world that we can be confident has a good grasp on what is true about reality? Do our mathematicians have a good grasp on what is true about reality? Far from it, as we have already seen. Do our physicists have a good grasp on what is true about reality? Our physicists are even worse than our mathematicians. Do our religions have a good grasp on what is true about reality? They do not. They do not. They do not. Human culture actively suppresses the knowledge of what is true about reality. Human culture actively suppresses the knowledge of what is true about reality. It does this because human culture is the story we told ourselves when we could not remember what is true about the reality of our existence. And now, human culture wishes only for its own furtherance, for its own continuation. This is the simple truth of our problems here. Politics says that the agreements of the majority should be imposed on all of us. I say that each one of us is eternally sovereign to our own self. Politics says that we need the correct form of governance. I say that what serves us like nothing else is a knowledge of the truth. I am suppressed online for saying this. What can we talk about versus what is true? We can talk about parallel universes and dimensions as much as we like, because they're not real. We can talk about this world of ours being a simulation as much as we like, because it's not true. We can talk about every conspiracy theory under the sun, so long as it's not true. We can talk about there being endless quantities of less than nothing. We can talk about time and space being a physical object. We can talk about a creator being that never needed to be created itself. We can talk about how right and good it is that the agreements of the majority should be imposed on all of us. What can we talk about without fearing we will be suppressed for it? Anything. Absolutely anything. Just so long as it is not true. This is the reality of human culture worldwide. And I get suppressed for saying it. Shall I ask you if you agree with everything I have said here so far? No, I'm not going to ask you that. I'm only going to ask you if you believe I should be allowed to say it. So, do you? Do you believe I should be allowed to say these things out loud without being systematically suppressed online for saying them? If the simple logic of what I have said here so far is not enough for you, what effect does it have on you to know that the saying of these things is actively suppressed? People all around the world are permitted to make all manner of outlandish claims without being suppressed in any way. What is it, do you think, that marks me and my claims out for different treatment? And how did our online systems even identify this in the first place? Okay, so, education. Now, as we've already covered, human culture is incorrect about all manner of things when it comes to knowing what is true about reality. Things that may initially seem small and possibly inconsequential, but the more we build upon these seemingly small mistakes, the more and more those mistakes become amplified as they inform all aspects of our daily lives. Human culture desires, above all other things, its own furtherance, and the key tool it employs to ensure its own furtherance is our education systems, to the point where, in a world where most everything must be paid for, the education of our children is provided for free in most countries. Not only is our child education provided for free, but it is literally made compulsory. It doesn't matter how much your country celebrates its own embodiment of the inherent freedom of its citizens. If your country can afford to provide free child education, then your country has gone ahead and made the decision to make this free child education compulsory, meaning that your children have no choice but to attend state-approved education, whether freely provided or paid for a big portion of their daily lives for their entire childhood. In a world where most services must be paid for, education is not just provided for free, but it is definitively forced on our children by law. The given rationale for this is that by forcing our children to attend state-approved education, the state is protecting our children's rights. Do you see how this sentence scans? By forcing our children to receive state-approved education, the state is protecting our children's rights? And who is it in this world exactly that protects our children from this? There are 3 very good reasons why freely available but non-compulsory child education would be far superior to the compulsory variety. Free education that the child can attend as they want to and as they feel ready to would be 1. Vastly cheaper for the taxpayer than compulsory education. 2. Vastly more effective as a learning aid than compulsory education. And 3. It would not be state-enforced child abuse that denies their self-sovereignty as free individuals. The only reason that this very clear and easy to understand situation goes unnoticed and uncommented upon by all of us is that we were abused in this way when we were children, and we were told it was love, which is one of the main things that child abusers tell the children they are abusing. The last thing that children need to be forced to do for their own protection is learn. Children absolutely love to learn. They love to be allowed to develop their skills and knowledge so that they can participate in the activities of the people around them. They crave this from their earliest days. Compulsory child education is the worldwide human rights violation that nobody notices because it was done to us when we were children and we were told it was love. It's one of the worst things in the world. Compulsory child education says that forcing our children to receive this education is a protection of their human rights. I say that it is state-endorsed, provided and enforced child abuse. Okay, so next we'll take a look at our legal systems, and then we can touch on economics, and we'll leave it at this. Otherwise, this video is never going to end. So, our legal systems. What is law all about? This is really very straightforward. law is the agreements of others being enforced on you. And our legal systems are the tool through which that enforcement takes place. There you go. That's what law is. There is nothing remotely ambiguous about this. How much involvement did you have in agreeing with the laws that are applied to you? You didn't have any. You weren't involved at all. Why must you honour agreements that other people made, people that you never met, most of whom are long since dead? Because the legal system will force you to. One word that sums this up is tyranny. You are eternal truth in living iteration, here through no fault of your own. And look what we have here. There is a whole system in place to make sure that you honour agreements that you never made. Agreements that people who are long since gone made because they thought it was a good idea. People who did not have a good grasp on what is true about reality. As provocative as me saying this may feel to you, what I am saying here is the simple, cut and dried truth of it. You are here through no fault of your own, and there's a bunch of people who are telling you what you can do, what you can't do, and what you must do, all based on the agreements of people you never met and who knew nothing of you. People who were no more qualified to tell you what you should and shouldn't do than you are to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. The legal system says that if you do not honour these specific agreements that other people made, you will be punished. I say that I cannot break an agreement that I never made. I am suppressed online for saying this. The reason I am a coherent and considerate individual in this world has nothing to do with our legal systems. The reason I am a coherent individual who is considerate of myself and others is because I have a solid foundational grasp on what is true about reality. Okay, so economics. What do I have to say here about economics? The predominant economical principle in this world is that of capitalism. Capitalism essentially teaches us how to use our money to make more money. And what is it that capitalism teaches us to do when we have made enough money? It teaches us to make some more, and then some more, and then some more. What does capitalism teach us to do when we have made more money than we need, more money than we can spend? It teaches us to make some more. I personally operate from a principle I call excess economics. What this means basically is if I have more than I need of something, I give the excess to somebody who doesn't have enough of it. This is the missing half of capitalism. This is the missing heart of capitalism. Capitalism, as it stands today, results in a small number of billionaires and a huge number of people who are poor and homeless. There is no scarcity in this world. None at all. There is more than enough of everything for all of us. It is only that some people have most of it and do not at all wish to give their excess, the excess that they can never consume themselves, to those who are in desperate need of it. It really is as simple as that. Should people be free to behave in this way? The truth of reality is that we are free, inherently free, to behave in any way we see fit. This is the truth of reality. We each are eternally sovereign to our own self. And I personally would not wish for this to change. I give that which I do not need to somebody, to anybody who does need it, because I have a solid foundational knowledge of what is true about reality. My quality of life is of the utmost importance to me, and I know well that my quality of life is improved drastically when the quality of life of the people around me is improved. This is a simple truth of reality that billionaires do not know. They wish for the quality of their life to be good and satisfying, just as much as I do. They only make the mistake of believing that causing thousands of people to go homeless and hungry is what is needed to improve the quality of their life. And when it doesn't work, they just think they need more of it. It's fucking hideous, really. For the reasons I have already stated, I do not wish for laws to be put in place that compel rich people to give their excess wealth to those in need. I only wish for all of us, billionaires included, to have a solid foundational knowledge of what is true about reality, because this will help them to achieve a satisfying quality of life, just as much as it would improve that of others. Capitalism says that if you wish for a satisfying quality of life, you should use your money to make more money and never stop doing this. I say that if you wish for a satisfying quality of life, you should give your excess to those around you who are in need of it. I am suppressed online for saying this. Okay, so I'm going to stop listing things that we can talk about versus what is true. The list goes on, and it goes on, but this video doesn't need to be longer than it needs to be. So, this human world of ours is in a definitively terrible state. And we can single out those amongst us that we see as being specifically to blame for this all day long. And that really only serves to perpetuate it. What exactly is it that I see as being the real problem here at the foundational level? And just what is it that I think can be done about it? For me, it is clear that identifying the simplest and most core root of a problem is the optimal place to start, the only place to start when it comes to solving that problem. What do I see as the simplest, most core root of the problems of human culture worldwide? We arrive here as amnesiac children, children who have no recollection of who we are, what we are, and why we are here. This is a natural consequence of the cyclic and transformative nature of being eternal truth in never-ending iteration. And it is not a problem for us on those occasions when we are born here to parents that have been reminded of what is true about reality at the foundational level. But we, as the collective that is humankind, we have never been reminded of this, not coherently, not well enough throughout all human history to date. Our parents did the best they could, given how well their parents did. And we do the best we can when it comes to telling our own children what is true about reality. But the human culture that we have created from this place of collective amnesia, it wants to live on. It hurts us. It causes all of the problems and suffering in the world, and it only wants to live on. This is how things are right now, and how they have been throughout all remembered and misremembered human history. The day this all changes is the day that our children arrive here to be met by parents who are able to tell them who they are, what they are, and why they are here. The day this all changes is the day we can all speak these truths without being suppressed for speaking them. The answer to all of the problems I have highlighted here is us being able to speak the truth without being suppressed for speaking it. I have been making videos about these matters since 2020, and this is how I have come to be one of the most suppressed online creators in the world today. Do I think that we should abolish all of our legal systems overnight? No. I just think that we should speak the truth. Whatever questions you may challenge me with regarding what I think is the best way for us to proceed in the face of all of the systems of human culture we now have in place, my answer is we just need to speak the truth, the real truth, and keep on speaking it. This is why I keep making my videos, even as fewer and fewer people are allowed to see them. Truth has entered the system, and it is here now. There are multiple copies of my videos, some of them on the hard drives of people I am completely unaware of. That part of the job is done now. Truth has entered the system, and it cannot be made to leave. Truth will have its way, because truth is the only thing that is ever happening anywhere. When the truth dawns on us, on any of us, in any given situation you care to mention, yes, we can resist it for a time, but our knowing of it is our knowing of it. It cannot be unknown, no matter how we may try. Our fear of it is not even really our own fear, but the fear of the culture we are steeped in, that culture born of amnesia, and which fears its own demise, whether it be a scientific theory, a religion, an esoteric tradition, a spiritual outlook, or whatever. To be coherent with what is true about reality is the very definition of what sanity is. And sanity brings what all sensitive, conscious beings want for themselves: freedom, agency, and love. You are inherently free for all time. You are eternally sovereign to your own self. You forever have the agency of your own choices. And the love you will experience will be the love that you choose. Speak the truth to yourself first and foremost. Speak the truth and keep speaking it. What others do with that is their freedom, their choice. Your responsibility is to yourself. This is what is true about reality. My love is real. You long to feel. If you forget, I'll remember. You know I come from November. One day you could not be soothed, like all the love had been removed. But I know when we are hurt, it doesn't serve to curse the world. My love, you're real. Whatever you feel, if you forget, I'll remember. You know I come from November. If you forget, I'll remember. If you forget, I'll remember. If you forget, I'll remember.